Huge news and instant reaction pod on the ABCFB podcast. I'm Andrew Garrison. That's Brooks White. Monshun Sales has committed to Indiana. He is a Hoosier. He announced it mere seconds ago on the Pat McAfee show. His final five was Indiana, Texas, Alabama, Ohio State, and LSU. And it's one of the first times that Indiana has been really in contention with programs like those. And not only that, but Indiana has beat out all of those programs for Monshun Sales. The first five-star in program history, a huge step for the program. And, Brooks, we talked just yesterday on the podcast about Ohio State, a program that's used to getting a lot of recruits like this year after year, but this is a huge, huge step for Indiana. What's your first reaction to this big news?
Well, it's awesome. He's staying in state, and Indiana already had a commitment from Brandon Sharp. So that's the number one and number two ranked players or wide receivers in state staying in Indiana. I mean, this is such a big day for the program. Obviously, as the reigning national champions, you would expect to see some high school recruits, but, Curt Cignetti has yet to really recruit high school as much as he's been retooling in the transfer portal. So getting this commitment from a five-star, the highest ranked player ever to commit to Indiana, first ever five-star, and then obviously he's staying in state. It's a local guy. He went to Lawrence North High School in Indianapolis. So Monshun Sales, number one ranked wide receiver in the country. I think this is just a program-changing day because once you get that first five-star, I think it really opens up a lot of ways for Indiana to recruit high schoolers, and potentially we could see more five stars coming along with Monshun Sales if he can be a recruiter as a player.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what could start a pipeline. I mean, I'll take it back to Ohio State. I mean, but that's with the wide receiver position. That's a program that it feels like every single year has one of the top talents at the freshman level, then they elevate and typically go to the NFL before they finish their 4 years. But still, it's a constant stream of greatness at the wide receiver position at Ohio State. And now Indiana could be that. Maybe the next wide receiver we talked about even in the transfer portal, right? This class right now, you have Tyler Morris, who transferred, a couple years ago, but didn't play at all last year with that injury. Charlie Becker, who just returns from being awesome last year during the national championship run. And Nick Marsh, one of the top wide receiver transfers in this last class. And now you're bringing in freshmen. So from every direction, there are going to be great wide receivers at IU. You even look to last year and the year prior, Omar Cooper Jr., Elijah Surratt, truly great receivers that have now elevated to the NFL and are set up to have good success at the NFL as well, particularly with Omar Cooper Jr., of course. And so it's just evidence that this could be a pipeline. It's great high school players in Indiana or elsewhere to IU and then to the NFL. Monshun Sales obviously has NFL-level talent, or at least will once he develops in college, and he's chosen to do that at IU, and it's major for the program because obviously we kind of knew that Indiana was here to stay. Obviously, after they win a national championship, after they back up their strong performance from 2 years ago with the even better performance last year, but this is just evidence that it's a long-term ramp up towards long-term success, and that's what these recruits are doing. It's what we talk about with Indiana men's basketball sometimes. That's the next step for them to kind of elevate the program. Indiana's already at the top and is only just accentuating and reloading that. The rebuilds was as quick as it could possibly be, and now the reloading process is just going to continue over and over if this, of course, continues. But again, that's why this is such major news for IU because this is where it starts. This is where the pipeline, and like you mentioned, the five-star avalanche begins. It at least starts here, and we'll see if it continues for IU, and I'm sure it will.
Yeah, and I mean, this is kind of a trend that we've seen in the first couple of years. Obviously, it's very early in Curt Cignetti's time at Indiana, but he hasn't necessarily prioritized the high school recruits rather than the guys with experience that he's built through the transfer portal. So this is such a big day for the program because I think it signals that change that Indiana can recruit in both the transfer portal but also with high school. So also another little interesting fact I want to throw out there. Monshun Sales went to Lawrence North. I think there's also a Lawrence North pipeline down to Bloomington. You know, Omar Cooper Jr., Davion Chandler, Donovan McCulley. Obviously, he went to Michigan. But, I mean, these guys, this is all in, obviously the last 5 to 7 years they played at Lawrence North, and now they're going to be heading down to Bloomington. So maybe it's something in the water there in Indianapolis that leads them down to Bloomington. But Monshun Sales, he's a proven winner. He is obviously the number one ranked wide receiver in all of high school football right now, or in the nation. And now he's going to be heading down to Bloomington. And I think we're sort of seeing this new wave where these recruits are helping convince other guys to come play with them. I think what Monshun Sales can do as the number one ranked wide receiver, he could potentially get some of these recruitments that Indiana's fighting for, especially in this class of 2027, 2028. He can get some guys into Bloomington who, can go straight from high school to playing in the Big Ten Conference at a top-tier program like Indiana. So I think what this can do for the coaching staff, what this can do for the program itself, and obviously Monshun Sales, he gets to go into, for now, what is one of the best offenses in all of college football. He gets to be coached by, Curt Cignetti, Mike Shanahan, obviously Coach Eddie. I mean, these guys are so talented as coaches, but also they can help Monshun Sales get to that next level in the NFL. And I think when you have talent like Monshun Sales, who is destined to make it in to the NFL and play on Sundays, it's awesome that he chose Indiana over these blue blood schools like you mentioned. I think it came down to the wire with Texas there. And Texas, they send guys to the NFL rather, every single year. LSU, Ohio State, Alabama, these are all programs that they have the talent year in and year out. They have 5 stars coming in and year out. So for Indiana to win this recruitment, especially in-state, I think it sets a good precedent for Curt Cignetti.
Yeah, and I really like the point you made about in-state recruits, because I feel like that's the biggest first step for some of these programs that are looking to try to elevate, because Alabama and Texas, LSU, Ohio State historically are the type of teams, or the type of programs rather, that dip into other states and just take the best players from those groups, and that's why Alabama and Georgia kind of had some of those dynasties, or at least one of the reasons why that was able to happen. So for Indiana to take just the 2 best receivers from the biggest city in their state is a big deal. Obviously, Indiana and Notre Dame are going to, pretty much dominate this. And Notre Dame's a different situation, right? Obviously, private school, just it's different. Indiana and Purdue, Indiana seems to be dominating some of those recruiting trails in a lot of ways. So, and you're right. I mean, you also bring in Lawrence North, someone from Lawrence North. If you're trying to continue that pipeline, that's a historically great high school football program. Brownsburg just won the state championship, if I'm not mistaken. If not, they did very recently. And so
they went
just
back in Indiana. So
went back to back. Okay, so I knew they won 2 years ago, and I thought they won last year too, but I was just making sure I wasn't out of my mind. And Brownsburg, again, both of those programs historically win quite a few games, and obviously have plenty of talented players as well. And you mentioned Lawrence North sending a lot of those players to IU. Donovan McCoy, Davion Chandler, those are recognizable names. That's a big deal for Indiana. And then I think the next step is becoming that team that, because obviously a part of this decision is perhaps the proximity. I don't know. I'm obviously not in the mind of Sales. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but you have the national champion that just so happens to be in your state. If Texas won the national championship, maybe he goes to Texas, and maybe it's a different situation entirely. But for sure, Indiana now has proven that they're able to at least keep the very best recruits in Indiana in the state. But the next step is maybe swiping a recruit from Cleveland, or sniping a recruit from from Dallas or something like that. I'm trying to think of a more niche, great Texas high school football town. But either way, if there are 5 stars or 4 stars or even 3 stars that they can, and they're already stealing 3 stars from other states, obviously, but those blue chip recruits, to swipe them from other dynastic sort of blue blood programs territory, I think is the next step for Indiana. And we'll see if that happens in the next cycle, or even, here late in this one. But this Sales recruitment is a huge deal for sure. And again, it's just going to start this. It's a new direction for Indiana now, in the upward direction, because that pipeline can begin, and as you mentioned, that avalanche can begin, not only from wide receivers, just wide receivers all over the country recognizing Indiana as a destination for them to vault themselves to the NFL, but also just the avalanche in the short term of, once one 5-star commits, it becomes so much more viable that many other 5-stars commit, as you mentioned. And then you have an Indiana team that is perhaps one of the most talented, eventually, teams in the country, with Curt Cignetti, with everything. This really could be this next major dynastic run. If you looked as last year as just a team of destiny, and as Fernando Mendoza would call it, like a group of misfits, right, and a ragtag crew, a band of brothers, not necessarily the most highly touted recruits, people that were all looked over. It might not be that way for very long. It might be just truly the best, most talented players in the country, all convening in Bloomington, which is very wild. But Curt Cignetti is here for the long haul, and Sales clearly recognized that and appreciated that presence, along with Shanahan and everyone else on that staff. And we'll see. I mean, it's only up from here for Indiana, and it seems like that's more of a long-term situation than a short-term one, at least based on what we've seen so far with this recruitment.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's happening in Bloomington right now, it's obviously such a big wave. It's a lot of emotion right now. I don't even know if Indiana fans know how to process it right now, just because they've never seen it. And I think when you look at the Curt Cignetti era, if you just zoom out a little bit, you've seen like almost every single year, like 2024, that 2024-2025 season, his first year, it felt like every single week you were seeing something new. Indiana undefeated, and Indiana 6-0, bowl eligible, and those things, it's like small victories for the fans. And then obviously last year, 16-0, perfect national champions. It's just the complete wave of emotion for Indiana football fans. So now you get that first 5-star, and I think you can start to build off of it. And when you look at it, I mean, we're Indiana students here. Why wouldn't you want to come to Indiana? They just won a national championship. They have a lot of NIL. I mean, it's a great donor base. And then Bloomington is just the place to be. And I know it's a little biased to say that, but I mean, it's just a perfect college town. And when you have the fans and the support and obviously the great football program, it's hard not to say, well, why didn't this happen sooner when you saw what Curt Cignetti was doing? It takes time to do this. Curt Cignetti, this entire recruitment, they've been following Monshun Sales. They were there the entire time. And obviously to have the two top wide receivers in Indiana coming down to Bloomington, I mean, you could only imagine what Monshun Sales is texting right now to, the top quarterbacks in the class of 2027 or even 2028. They could potentially, Indiana could potentially be a major factor or front runner for some big-time recruits offensively here in a couple of weeks or months. And that's just the most exciting thing about this recruitment is you get a 5-star, you get the best wide receiver in the nation, but this is also a snowball effect of all the great things that have happened in the Curt Cignetti era, and it's only been, going into his third season here.
Yeah, absolutely. This class as a whole for 2027, before the Sales commitment, was ranked 38th according to 24/7 Sports. At that time, obviously, with 4 4-stars already committed, 16 commits overall. Now they're going to get this first 5-star. We'll see where Indiana ranks after that sort of updates and after those recruiting rankings slot in. Say that again, sorry?
Indiana, it did update. Indiana is now the 30th overall class right now, but Monshun Sales jumping them up 8 spots. That's only 1 commitment. And again, I think it's the snowball effect. It's still early in the class of 2027. Indiana has 17 commits right now, so they're obviously going to look to build off of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I see 28th in the composite rankings. Obviously, it depends on where you are, where you're looking, but just outside the top 25 is where we're at right now, just looking at IU. And, there's another wide receiver in this class, too, Jordan Carrasquillo from Alpharetta, Georgia, went to Milton High School, a 3-star that I'm excited about as well for this team. And, 17 commits. They're creeping up towards the top 25, and I think this is going to be potentially a team that is up towards the top in these recruiting rankings consistently. And again, there are teams that do. Florida has the 7th best class. That's not an unfamiliar sight. Auburn is frequently up there. They're 10th now for 2027. There are programs towards the top. Nebraska, 15th, is perhaps the best example. UCLA, that bring in strong recruits and just don't quite translate that into success on the field in quite the same way as some other teams do. But Indiana has shown that they can translate that translate whatever player base they have into the very highest level of success, and do so even with players that are not 5-stars, right? And so now bringing one in as a freshman is only going to elevate those opportunities. And it's really it's a redefining moment for the history of Indiana. Maybe more so than the national championship, because in terms of the long term success and the long term outlook, because this is verifiable evidence that what we saw last season and what we saw 2 years ago was real, and also is going to have an impact on the future and allow these Indiana high school recruits and perhaps national recruits as well to really flock to Bloomington. And we'll just see what kind of avalanche or snowball effect that has moving forward. It's fascinating. It's the top two receivers in Indiana. It's wide receiver U from an Indiana perspective. We'll see if that extends to a national perspective as well for IU. And quarterbacks are going to have a great time also. I mean, you just mentioned it. The quarterbacks are going to have a great time throwing to receivers like that. The coaches are going to appreciate an increase in talent for sure. And so it perhaps Indiana is, I don't know what you have to do, what the requirements are to qualify as a blue blood, like I don't know how you get added to the blue blood group. And obviously that takes a very long amount of time. But if over the course of this next decade, Indiana is always at the top, kind of like Ohio State, wins a few more national championships. Again, I don't know. I'm not going to make any declarations about that. But it's wild that the generation below ours could look back on Indiana as a similar program at the level of Ohio State, who yesterday, Brooks, you were talking about as a team that or a program that has been towards the top for multiple decades. This could be the start of that, and it's wild that we're witnessing that in real time. Don't want to overreact too much. It's ultimately just one commitment, but as we mentioned, one commitment is what's enough to start a pipeline, and one commitment is what's enough to start an avalanche sometimes, or at least a snowball effect. Maybe a whole mountain of snow coming down is a bit of an overreaction, but at least a snowball that slowly builds over time is what we're seeing begin right here with Monshun Sales. And also, not only that, he's going to be awesome on the field. He'll be electric on the field as well, which is incredible. And
great player, 6'5",
yeah.
195. I mean, just the intangibles. I mean, he is obviously. I've watched a lot of film on him because I've been following this recruitment closely. I mean, he is going to be lightning in a bottle when he touches the field in Bloomington. So excited for that. Not to cut you off, but I mean, this is just such a big day for Indiana and the future of the program, and really just speaks to the effect Curt Cignetti has brought to Bloomington and has continued to build on since he stepped foot in Bloomington, obviously in late 2023, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
or the
feels like that
2024
long
season.
ago, yeah.
So yeah, it's been a bit, but obviously only his third season coming up in a couple of weeks. So this only just makes me more excited for the college football season starting in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to look into the film stuff, you probably could provide a little bit more detail than I could. But my understanding of the very basic general idea is that with his speed, he can create space around defenders. But almost more importantly, in tandem with that, is you mentioned his 6'5", that wingspan, that stature. His catch radius is much more expansive than most other receivers, more than likely, especially at his age and with the experience that he has right now. So I've seen some scouting reports that suggest that maybe he could refine his route running a little bit, some of the craftiness in that aspect, but just that physical superiority of not only can he create space from receivers or from defenders rather, but even if he doesn't create space, he's the type of guy that's just gonna catch it over you, catch it around you, and that catch radius is quite wild. And so I can imagine plenty of deep corner routes into the end zone, and he's on the back pylon, and he's got his hands up over his head, spanning an unbelievable amount of space, and he's making that catch and bringing it down for a touchdown. I think that's the type of plays that we'll see out of him. It's the physical traits that are the most alarming and the most noteworthy with him for sure. And obviously this coaching staff is probably as great as any in terms of being able to just develop and accentuate and elevate those skills.
Yeah, and just one final thing, and then we can wrap it up. But I don't know if you saw that clip the other day, but Sauce Gardner, Colts cornerback, went to Lawrence North, and when he was done talking with the team, Monshun Sales, he interrupted and he said he challenged Sauce Gardner to a one-on-one. I mean, that's just the kind of guy you want on your team and you want in your program. And so for Curt Cignetti to get this dog and put him just alongside the rest of this wide receiver group, because I think it's a really talented wide receiver room that they have down in Bloomington. I mean, it's just a great day for everyone involved with Indiana football, any fan, and any guy who is around Lawrence North. I mean, I just think it's so crazy how many guys have gone from Lawrence North to Bloomington. So a big day for Monshun sales, a big day for Indiana, and a great day for the future of the Indiana football program.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be too much of a conspiracy theorist here. I don't know what was going on in the minds of these people, but to accentuate the point you just made, right? He challenges Sauce Gardner to a 1v1, and I don't think that 1v1 ever happened. I don't think Sauce Gardner actually agreed to it. I think was Sauce Gardner afraid of Monshun sales? I don't want to
maybe.
It's totally possible because the risk reward there, like, oh, you beat a high schooler, and then it's, oh, you lost to a high school. You know what I'm saying? The risk reward isn't that great. But if you want to put the conspiracy hats on, maybe Sauce Gardner was afraid of Monshun sales on that Lawrence North practice field a couple of weeks ago, and that just speaks. Regardless, that entire event, that entire video, whether the 1v1 happened or not, I didn't see a video of it, and I don't think you did either. I
doubt it happened.
Yeah. So we'll see how much of that was just fun and games, but I don't think Sales was really just playing games there. I think he was very much trying to make that happen, and it didn't. So maybe that speaks to the fear that Sales can strike into some defenders. Brooks, do you have anything else to add? I know this is a huge moment, and we are recording immediately after it happened, so there's going to be some thoughts that we have, in the hours after this. You can follow us both on X to catch some of those opinions or those thoughts if we process them over the course of the day. But anything else to add here on this instant reaction?
I mean, I think we really said it. This is just such I've said this a million times, but just a great day for Indiana and the future of their recruiting. And I followed this recruitment it's been like what feels like over a year now, and for Indiana to be there the entire time, I think that's also telling that they were one of the first people to contact Monshun sales, and then to go and finish out the recruitment and actually land him. I think it's just such a big day for Indiana. And when you get that first 5-star, you can only imagine when the next 5-star will come for Indiana. So huge day.
Yeah, absolutely. And Indiana, he mentioned on the Pat McAfee show, was the second offer that Sales received. You're absolutely right. Indiana was there the entire way. Well, you can follow our Indiana football coverage over the course of the entire season at the Hoosier Network, thehoosiernetwork.com. It's where you can find a lot of our written coverage. Obviously, we'll have this podcast each and every week. This was a little bit of an extra show, a show 2 days in a row for the first time on the ABCFB podcast. That's a great time as well. So in the description, you can find the locations of all of our other work, but thehoosiernetwork.com is where you can find our Indiana football stuff. We'll have coverage of Big Ten Media Days, and we're both going to be in college when Monshun Sales is in college, so I'm sure that even if it's a year from now, we're going to have plenty of game coverage and reactions and analysis from games that Indiana plays with Sales in an Indiana uniform, and we'll have to see what that looks like when we get to that point. But it's a huge moment in the long term for Indiana. Thank you very much for tuning in, especially if you made us your first listen here after this big news. We should probably hit the stop button on the record and get this posted so that people can actually watch and listen to it. But that's Brooks White. I'm Andrew Garrison. This is the ABCFB podcast. Monshun Sales is a Hoosier, and we will see you all next time.